You're watching Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. It's the only podcast offering unfiltered guidance and direct advice for anyone in the financial services and wealth management industry. Learn more today at eliteconsultingpartners.com/podcast. And now, here's your host, Frank LaRosa.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. This is Frank LaRosa, along with my guest compadre. Not my guest. You're not really my guest compadre. You're my right-hand man.
You kind of botched that one up that time.
Okay.
That's funny, though.
It's okay. It's one of those
Usually
days.
say right-hand man.
I always say right-hand man. You are my right-hand man.
Appreciate you saying
It's
that.
okay.
So I'm here. It's
Dale
me.
Dempsey,
It's Dale.
what's up?
I'm feeling great. We have interesting news today.
Yeah, so we're trying to just throw this together. That's the excuse I'm going to use as to why I messed up the beginning of my intro. But we are one take kind of guys, so we don't want to redo it. But today we're doing a hot mic episode, and it's some huge news this morning on. Well, I don't know if I would say it's huge news, but within financial services, it's pretty big news.
Yeah.
That was of Morgan Stanley buying E-trade. It was a big deal this morning. People, I got tons of questions from reporters and different people. I know you got tons of questions. So we really just thought that we would take a little bit of time here and sort of spitball some ideas and thoughts, concerns. Having been in the business for a long time, I have some opinions and some great articles that have been written. I think there's some articles that are out there that sort of miss the mark, specifically the ones that talk about Morgan Stanley going into the RIA business. I don't think that's happening.
Can we maybe hold on? Let's start with a quote.
Sure.
Right. So they had a phone call about this already at Morgan Stanley. I thought this was one of the better articles that we found because it actually says a lot. And this is coming from James Gorman himself,
yeah.
right? So he's saying E-trade's business of providing trading and custody to RIAs, while relatively small, is interesting. Obviously, it wasn't the primary motivator of the transaction, but we respect the RIA business and understand it a little bit, and we will play that out over time.
Right.
So what is that?
That's like you telling just like you telling your the girlfriend you want to break up with. It's not you, it's me. Right. I really respect you, but I just don't want to date you anymore. Right. He respects the business, the RIA business. I'm not buying that. I don't believe. Well, I do believe that's. They didn't buy it for the RIA space. Right?
No. Yeah,
I think they bought it primarily for their deposits. I think one of the articles that I saw quoted something like $39 billion in client deposits, which is a huge deal. We talked about that on a prior podcast about rising interest rates, and when you have interest rates rise, that's when firms, financial service firms, banks start to make money on the spread finally.
Right, because rates have been down for
low.
so long.
Yeah, they're not making any money. Again, part of the same reason you have Schwab and TD merging together, and you see within the space in general a lot of mergers, right, and just a massive fight for client assets. The other reason I think that they made this this news. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just giving an opinion. Maybe if I was a financial advisor, I might look at it like not a great thing. But and I made a comment this morning on our LinkedIn page about this sounds just like Morgan Edge, right? Like if it was like Merrill Edge, this is like Morgan Edge. They already have issues with advisors managing accounts for small clients, right?
Right.
They don't pay them as much or at all,
right?
Unless they're in an advisory type of platform, and so they didn't really have a solution on how to make the case to hand those clients off. I think this is that case. I think this is the way they're going to go about doing it. Yeah, they're picking up some digital some digital technology, which they're behind on, and to their credit, they're admitting that, right? This is part of that, so congratulations there. They're buying instead of recreating some of the technology, they're buying it, and I give them a lot of credit for that. When I was back in like 2008, we had been exploring some aggregation tools, and they were taught when I was at Smith Barney, or really Morgan Stanley at the time. they were going down this road of sort of building out an aggregation tool, right? And I was like, well, why don't you just buy e-money? It's across the river.
Right.
You're just trying to do what they've already done, and they didn't want to do it. And I thought it was a bad idea, and so I give them credit at least here for recognizing, hey, we're not going to be able to build this thing. Let's just go and write a check and buy it.
And so for anybody that knows, it's one of the lower cost custodian options out there.
Right.
Which is another interesting thing. I don't think I saw that anywhere in the articles that we read.
Yeah, well, if I'm an RIA, and you were talking about this earlier, so I'll let you run with the point. But yeah, if you're an RIA,
and you use them as a
think,
custodian,
right?
what you're thinking is Morgan Stanley just bought client data.
Right.
Now has information on all the clients I have on the E-Trade platform. Their view is probably, Morgan's view is probably, well, we own those clients now, knowing them. Maybe it's not publicly stated today, but yeah, guess what? Your clients are. You have to be concerned that they're going to market to your clients.
Sure. And the other thing they're going to have to work out, and again, I'm sure they'll work this out. And if they're listening to this podcast, you should work this out, gentlemen and ladies. Is how are they going to? I know if you're a Morgan Stanley advisor and you have a client that has an E-Trade account, you're now going to them and saying, hey, look, now I can help you with that account. Why don't you just, we're going to merge them all together. I'll take over the account. Right? It's a way for them to capture and control those assets if you're a Morgan Stanley advisor. That's something that they're going to have to figure out. Because if I'm an RIA on that platform, I don't want the local Morgan Stanley advisor coming after my accounts.
Yeah, right. That could be problematic. And so how do they keep it? Because they're making money off of that business. E-Trade is,
of
at
course
least,
they are.
Right? Not a ton of it, but I think that's one of the things Morgan.
Again and again, they're making money off the deposits.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
That's why Schwab and TD were like, no cost for trading. Bring over your millions. It won't cost you anything to trade here. We're not going to pay you any interest because we're going to keep it all. Right?
Right.
But bring over all your deposits.
Sure.
That's the end game. I think that the other piece of this, which we don't really talk about too much because there aren't that many firms that go after it, is on the corporate service side, right? And all the business that they do on the corporate service side.
Yep.
And they're able to really, I think this is probably a good move. If you are a Morgan Stanley advisor and you're running corporate services, it will be interesting to see how they integrate this into your business, because this will give you one of the challenges that we have, and we have some clients that are like this, is you get these big corporate service accounts with a company, but then you have to deal with all of the small participants, right? All the plan participants, and it's always been a challenge. We helped one client. They moved to a firm we had recommended, and they were able to build out a robo platform for their models with TD Ameritrade, to allow the plan participants access to the same modeling programs that the executives at the company had, right?
Huh?
So and I think that's one of the things that E-Trade does really well, is they allow the plan participants really to access all that information. And I think that Morgan Stanley has always had a difficult time capturing the assets of the plan participants, right? Well, I'm not necessarily talking about within the plans, right? Because they have those assets ready.
The plans,
all the ancillary business.
You got to wonder, because this is actually, I was trying to look it up on my phone. This is the second deal they've done in maybe 2 years. Didn't they have another one? With this, it's similar, but it was all plan participants. It was all corporate services.
Yeah, it's like Solaris or something.
Right,
yeah.
right. And so I bet you that went pretty well. That would be my guess.
Right.
And so they're looking at another deal like this, which is about half of the total assets of the deal anyway.
Well, they're smart. I mean, those types of plans, that kind of business is very sticky.
Yeah.
Right. And it just keeps growing, right? As employers are making money, they're putting the contributions into the plans. It just keeps growing, and so I do give them credit for that. But I don't. There is some banter about, this is congratulations, Morgan Stanley's moving into the RIA custody space. They're going to compete with Pershing. And all this stuff.
They're already sort of there anyway.
They are. Well,
let it be known.
We work with a couple of firms that.
Yeah, you can custody Morgan Stanley.
Right.
They already have that. I don't think it's going to be what everybody. It's not going to be a competitor to Schwab.
That's what people are thinking. And so when they're quoted, I believe when Gorman is quoted in these articles about being a competitor and not being afraid of Schwab and TD, Fidelity really, he doesn't mean on the custody and clearing side, right? He means in the retail mass affluent market. This is, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this is where they're going. This is why they did this. They are going after the mass affluent.
Yeah.
Period. And that's both on the corporate service side and on the retail side. And if I was a Morgan Stanley financial advisor, because this is what you have to be asking yourself, what does this mean to me? What's going to happen with my smaller accounts? Are you going to start pushing me to move those off of our platform, i.e. Merrill Edge, right, with some story, and I'm going to lose that relationship in some form or fashion? The other thing that I thought was really funny, I chuckled when I read this, is when they said that the one article, actually Andrew Welsh wrote this article. He did a nice job on financial planning. Was quoted, or I guess it was Gorman that was quoted, that they're not going to change the name, the E-Trade name, and I laughed because when I was at Smith Barney and we were bought out by Morgan Stanley, I had Andy Saperstein sit in my office, literally sit in my office like 5 feet away from me, and I asked him that same exact question, and he said, no, we're not changing the name. And then 2 days later, we were in a complex directors meeting, and there was Andy Saperstein again. Someone asked the same question, and he said, "Oh yeah, no, the name's going to change." And so I just chuckled because it reminded me of what happened last time.
Why would they keep the name? They just bought it.
They wouldn't, and candidly, they shouldn't. I mean, Morgan Stanley has a better name.
Yeah.
Right. They just do.
They do.
And if you're a small account, if you're a small, sort of millennial client, and you don't have a ton of money, how cool it would be to say that your account's at Morgan Stanley
or J.P. Morgan.
Yeah, whatever. I mean,
or Goldman Sachs.
Call it whatever you want, but that's going to be cool.
By the way, I don't know if you read this. Seems like Goldman Sachs is basically headed in the same direction with the mass affluent.
Right. Well,
interesting how these investment
they
banks.
bought United Capital. Right.
They bought United Capital. They had a big announcement, like public announcement meeting, where it's like, hey, the idea is we're going after the mass affluent, and everybody's sort of looking at each other like, oh, really?
Well, it's all like herd mentality, right?
Yeah.
No such thing as an original idea. For a long time, it was about going upstream, going after the big client. There's still a ton of that.
Sure.
There's still a huge market for that, but there's always been this pressure to get bigger and bigger clients, and leaving and advisors. This is advisors have always said, why would I want to get rid of my small accounts, right? So it was really the C-suite that didn't quite understand this, and they're starting to learn this now. It's the mass affluent that you really have to service and go after, and sort of get trained in your models and your system, your culture, so that they stay on board. Because eventually, what you're hoping is the mass affluent become affluent, and that's when you want to have them on board. So anyway, I just thought that was an interesting news article, sort of very a non-traditional acquisition, created a lot of buzz. If I'm an advisor at Morgan Stanley, I'm asking lots of questions right now. If I'm an RIA at E-Trade, I'm asking lots of questions right now. On the positive side, I think this makes a lot of strategic sense. If I'm senior management at Morgan, and I'm on the board or whatever, this makes strategic sense for the future. The only thing I would say is just sort of be honest about why you're doing it. I think that's the biggest thing you should be talking about. If it's bank deposits, tell everybody it's about bank deposits. If it's about capturing mass affluent, that you don't have enough, your margins aren't that great in the retail space, no one's gonna look down on you for being honest about that. That's the truth. So anyway, thanks for joining us on this hot mic moment. We'll talk to you next week.
Great talk.
I wonder if you were going to miss it.
What?
Thanks for watching Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out some of our other episodes. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and we will see you back here next week.